everybody, and welcome to today's Bodacity Show. I'm Jeanette Anderson, your hostess with the mostest, and I'm here today with the fabulous, fascinating, fun, and feisty Maggie Isley. Isley or Isley? How do you pronounce your last name?
Isley.
Isley.
Yep.
You're not even close.
Close enough.
You know why? Well, an ex of mine used to drink Islay, and it was pronounced Islay, Scotch, and it's spelt the same, but not pronounced the same. Boy, talk about random programming. Okay, so, hi, welcome. So
Hello.
let me a little bit about Maggie, and then we'll rock and roll on this fascinating topic of how to work with your brain as a neurodivergent engineer. So we're going to define that, and we'll talk about how that applies to the rest of us who may not have that diagnosis yet. Okay, so Maggie Isley. Now
Isley.
Isley, thank you. I'm all weird about it now. Maggie Isley.
Now it's all you can think about.
Maggie is a recovered corporate drone turned TEDx speaker, branding expert, and neurodivergent mentor and coach for entrepreneurs. And she has a fascinating background and has basically worked going from 40,000 to a whopping 400K in revenue. So she knows how to build a business. She knows how to work with being neurodivergent and having challenges and benefits of that. So if she can do it, you can do it. And she's here to tell you how. All right. So welcome, Maggie. I'm glad you're here.
Hello.
And so tell us something about you that we wouldn't guess or that we wouldn't find on your website, or, and I always like to say the juicier and deeper, darkest the secret, the better. But, whatever you want to share.
Well, I think something that's a little weird about me is that I have a gecko tattoo, and I've never had a pet gecko. I've never done, I have no reason to have a gecko tattoo except that when I was a child, I went to Hawaii and I thought they were so cool because they were everywhere. So when I turned 18, I went and got a gecko tattoo.
That's so cute. I love geckos too. I actually have a secret place in my heart for them because I think they're A, very cute, and B, they eat bugs. And they, besides a little poop here and there, they're very low maintenance. So yeah, they're really cute.
Yeah. I just went and got a gecko tattoo. It was I have no reason for that.
I think all the more reason to have it. So that's awesome.
Right.
And actually I find their little chirps quite soothing and lovely. It's almost listening to bird song. So I'm with you. We're geckos, another Mr. or something. All right. So let's talk about, first of all, let's start off with, why do you do the work that you do? So let's find out some of the why.
The first part of that question is, why do I do the branding? Right. Let's start there.
Okay.
The branding happened because I used to be a blogger, and moms in the community, in my local community, literally just came up to me and asked me to brand their business out of nowhere. And I was like, I don't know what that means. So I had to educate myself. And in doing so, I built a business on accident.
That's hilarious. I haven't had someone say they were asked into a profession before. So
it was the weirdest thing. I was like, I don't know what that means. And then that first business, the very first business that I branded, ended up being on the news when the vice president came to town and visited their business, and all of the signage, everything was on the news. And I was like, this is the coolest thing. So that's how I got into branding. But then when I built that business so big, and I had my diagnosis of ADHD, all of a sudden people with ADHD were like, well, how did you do that with a brain that functions like ours? Because people with ADHD have executive dysfunction, which means that we get stuck. We want to do things and we just sit there and it looks like we're just being lazy, but really we are stuck. And they're like, well, how did you do that? And I was like, oh, I found this way and this way and this way. And they're like, well, can you teach me? So I fell into coaching the same way. And it was like, so I do the work I do because people ask me to. And I'm like, yeah, let me try it. And then I try it and I'm like, oh, I love this. This is fantastic. So
Okay.
yeah, I do it because people ask, and then I turn out I like it. Turns out I like it. So I do it. So far, so good.
Okay, well, that is a different we get, so that's awesome. Okay, well, let's define neurodivergent. So what does that actually mean nowadays? Because it's a relatively
Neurodivergent.
new term.
Neurodivergent came out. It came out as a term. Oh, I actually have like a whole bunch of info on it on my Instagram, but it came out as a term years ago. And it was just one person saying the term. And eventually it caught on when we started getting a bunch of different diagnoses for different conditions.
Mhm.
All it actually means is a brain that functions differently. That's all it means.
Okay.
But we're using it in this case as someone with ADHD or someone with on the autism spectrum, or it could be also used for Tourette's. It can be used for a range of conditions. I primarily work with people who either are ADHD, they function with attention deficit hyperactive disorder,
Mhm.
which is a neurological, it's a condition, but it's actually, it just means your frontal lobe is formed differently.
Mhm.
And ADD is now considered ADHD. ADD has gone away.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
That's something that people don't know. So when we say ADHD, it's not that we're all hyperactive, because that's not it at all. It's that ADD doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
So that is that's a huge thing.
So why did it go away if there's people who that would still be the accurate diagnosis for them if they're not ADHD? Why would the diagnosis go away if that's still accurate?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it went away as far as scientifically go, like as far as the DSM goes, it went away.
Oh, all
It
right
doesn't
then.
exist.
Hmm. Um,
So
so
yeah, it's no longer something you can be diagnosed with.
so tell us what it's like, and I know that it's you can't speak for all the diagnoses because they have different challenges and issues and things that go on, but let's talk about ADHD. You mentioned that you just feel stuck sometimes, because I think a lot of people
Mhm.
their notion of ADHD is just too hyper to focus, right? So
Yeah.
tell us what that means, what's going on in the brain, and what the challenges of that are. How does it
So
feel?
it
And
works in so many different ways, and it can hit different people different ways,
Mhm.
which is always interesting. And it can hit the same person different ways in different days.
Mhm.
So when you have something going on with your executive dysfunction, that executive functioning skills are everything that we need to get things done. Now, this could mean your time management. This could mean just your ability to get up and shower. The transitions are really hard for ADHD people. So once we're in the shower, it's fine. But getting the stuff that we need to get in the shower, meaning
Mm.
grabbing your clothes, grabbing all the stuff that you're going to need for your hair once it's wet. If you're somebody who it's a shampoo day for you, that becomes very hard. And not always. Some days you're like, oh, this is great. This is easy. But within our community, you'll find people who are like, I just can't do it today.
Mm.
I just can't do it. I haven't been able to shower in 2 days. And there are people who, when you even mention the idea of whatever their transition problem is, like, oh, it's okay, you just have to change clothes. They're like, I can't change clothes. I can't do it. I can't get the clothes together. Whatever their big triggering thing is, they
Mhm.
feel stalled. So that might be one person's thing.
Right.
But another person is defiant.
Mm.
That's what triggers them. So people have different things that stall them out. A lot of people struggle, and this is very common, with time blindness.
Time blindness, did you say?
Blindness. Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is this goes with your hyper focusing that you were thinking about. They don't know how long things take. And then when they get into something, they lose all track of time. And they don't necessarily have to be focused on it to where it's like a great task. It's that they go, okay, great. This should take me like 5 minutes. I will get right back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been 2 hours. You haven't heard from them. And it's not necessarily because they love that task. It's that they went to do something else that took them an hour. And then they came back to this, and this took longer than expected because they don't have a great grasp of time. And to teach ourselves time, we literally have to write down how long things take to learn what time feels like, because we have a hard time understanding time. We just don't get it.
Right.
So we use timers, we use calendars, we use these things to keep track of it for us because we don't have a grasp of it.
Right.
It makes it very hard.
I would imagine, especially as an entrepreneur, when you've got an endless to-do list and, things like prioritizing that and figuring out how long things are going to take would be very challenging, especially if you had to, for instance, give an estimate to a client on how long something's going to take. That would be very, very hard. So
that's why they have coaches. That's why so many ADHD entrepreneurs have coaches.
Right. So how does that help them? What is the workaround or the thing that helps people with, let's start with the time issue, understanding timing and stuff?
So what we do is they will bring it to, or we do it in general, like we bring it to a third party. And it might be somebody else who has ADHD, which is fine, but they need to have a complementary skill set. So I've learned time because I worked in corporate America for 15 years. So I've learned a lot of the skills that I didn't have naturally. And because of that, I have people that I have priority setting meetings with on Mondays. And we go through because they don't know how to set priorities. And say you get somebody who wants a proposal from you. And you have no idea how long your project's going to take. You think, oh, that's easy. I should be able to get that done in an hour. So we'll meet, talk about how long, and I will say, okay, but how much does it normally take you? And I'll be like, I get that done in like an hour. Okay. Well, last time that took you a day and you didn't deliver it until that Friday because you kept going back and changing it. So you need a second set of eyes on these things.
Okay.
Because when we have people going for, like ADHD people going at these things alone, until they learn the skills, they cost themselves money.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and you mentioned that you learned in corporate. So is it just a different way of learning these things? Is there a different way of accessing or processing it? So for example, how you mentioned that you kept track of things, so that you kind of started to have a record of how long things took. Is that how you learned about time? So
it's how I learned. And a lot of people suggest the Pomodoro technique. Very, very common suggestion. And it works great. Like when I'm teaching people to learn their time, I have them every half hour write down what they've done and what they worked on in that half hour. And they have a timer going. And then they'll learn time. Like they'll learn it. You don't have a choice.
Right.
They hate me for it,
yeah,
but they learn it.
So what's one of probably the biggest misconceptions about people who are neurodivergent, would you say? And I know there's probably a lot of misconceptions, but what are some of the ones that you've dealt with that might be the most painful or challenging?
That we can just get a planner and figure it all out. Like, just show up earlier when someone is running late all the time. We'll just get here earlier. Just get a planner and write it down so you don't forget.
Right. So people don't understand the process.
They don't understand that it's not that easy. We can learn. We can learn all those things. but it takes time. It takes repetition. That's not how our brains work. That would be like if I handed you a very difficult math problems that only mathematicians know. And I was like, figure it out. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
Just solve it. Just give me the answer.
Right.
And you'd want to throw something at me.
Good analogy. I like that.
Right. And because you'd be like, yeah, it's solvable, but not by me, not right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's difficult.
So what we talked a little bit about, they might have challenges with pricing things, etc. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were building and growing your business?
Before I understood, this is something we haven't talked about, that part of being neurodivergent is feeling your emotions more. Because the way that I grew up, we didn't feel our emotions. Like that was just not a thing. You know, I grew up in that kind of a family. But being ADHD, with that comes something called RSD, which is rejection sensitivity disorder. And I thought for sure, and it really happens when you're an entrepreneur, I thought for sure I was a crazy person because every time something went wrong in my business, I wanted to just throw in the towel, which is just part of entrepreneurship. But I thought that I was crazy town USA. Like, and I had never felt like that with anything else. Come to find out, yeah, most entrepreneurs have those moments anyway. But I felt it so strongly that I was like, this can't be normal. This like, But with ADHD, RSD is a thing. And what happens with RSD is we confuse our feelings with emotions, which people do in general. But it's stronger. And it sends people into shame spirals. We're like, oh, we can't get up. We can't get out of bed. We're just like, it's a nasty. And it's something that I work on with clients too. A therapist obviously is best for this, but it's something that I work on. And it's a really good anchor to know what the difference is between a feeling and an actual emotion and what the need is for that.
Right.
But that caught me off guard.
Right. So why don't you, just for everyone, define the difference between feelings and emotions?
Yes. So it's actually, I have a free gift for everybody with that. So we can talk about that at the end. But what the big difference is like, for example, if you're feeling like you're feeling rejected, for example, you're not rejected. What's happening is that you're feeling like you're feeling hurt. You're feeling rejected. Your emotion is sadness. Your emotion is that you need to go lay down, basically. Your emotion is that you want to, it's sadness. That's your emotion. So from there, what do you need? You need acceptance. That's what you need. So you want to look at, and I have for everybody a chart of your feelings, your emotions, and the need that results. And this is good for no matter how your brain functions. This is something that all of humankind has in common. We all have feelings. We all have all of them. So what would happen here? I'm going to go through a couple really quickly, just because I want you guys to know what I mean.
So this is like a chart you've put together, or
yes, it's a chart I've put together for you guys.
Okay.
And it is, let's say you're feeling misunderstood. You keep trying to get your point across. Nobody understands what you're talking about. And then you go into that RSD feeling, that rejection feeling of, okay, so I'm weird. Nobody likes me. I'm the weirdest person. That's your feeling.
Yeah.
What's the emotion? You're upset.
Yeah.
You're hurt. You feel confused because, like, why are you like this? Right? Those are your feelings. But what's the need? Your need is to be understood.
Mhm.
That's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who understands you. So in the end, you're able to break it down and say, I just need someone who understands me.
Mhm.
I'm not weird. I just need some acknowledgement. I need to be heard. And I need people who are like me.
Mm.
And then all of us can relate to that. It doesn't matter how your brain functions.
Mhm.
And getting clarity around that was able to help me a lot on my journey and coming to terms with the fact that my emotions are very strong. And it made me come out of that RSD feeling a lot faster, because I was like, oh, I'm not crazy town USA. I'm fine. I'm fine.
So, and I would imagine as an entrepreneur, if you're dealing, especially if you're selling your services, then
Mhm.
dealing with that fear of rejection would be heightened. Dealing with the emotion related to perceived rejection, whether it's a
Right.
no, would be heightened. And so, for you, part of it sounds like part of the way to overcome that was to become aware of the underlying need and address that and take care of that, so that you weren't reacting to the fear and so forth of the automatic fear that comes up if you're selling yourself, marketing yourself, putting yourself out there.
It's exactly that.
Yeah. So what do you think is, we've only got a few minutes left, what are some of the strengths of an entrepreneur who has ADHD or is neurodivergent in some way? What are some of the strengths that they bring that others don't have?
Oh my gosh. So many. So just as fast as our brain works in getting things done around here,
Mhm.
although we do lose track of time, we have as many ideas. So our impulsivity, as bad as that could be, it's also great because we move faster. We might get stuck. We might have our days where we can't do anything, but when we are going, we are going. And when we have a good idea, we act on it.
Mm.
So the stuff that I had a good idea yesterday at 9 p.m. and the class has already been listed for sale. I did the Thrive Cart last night and I've already sold multiple spots.
Okay. So fast
So
for sure.
yeah, we are fast acting when we have good ideas.
Right. So how can people build on some of those strengths to be better entrepreneurs? What are some of the keys to being able to do that?
Recognize that you are worthy, because that's one of our biggest problems as ADHD people. Use your community
Mm.
to remind you that you are worthy. Again, these are such timely questions. Today, 7:00 this morning, I shared with my own little group of entrepreneurs that our community is our biggest strength,
Mm.
because it's something that we always have around us. It is completely free. It's the easiest thing that we have access to,
Mhm.
and that we can bare our souls, especially if we're using something like Facebook. We can bare our souls without even having to show our face,
Mm.
which allows us to be completely vulnerable. We
Mhm.
can post anonymously if we need to, but you can act on it. You can be so big by being an entrepreneur and saying, hey, I have this amazing idea. I want to get all this done, and I just need somebody to hold me accountable.
Mhm.
And we can all do it for them
Mm.
in a group. And it's fantastic. Like, man, ADHD entrepreneurs can get so much done.
Mm.
And because our brains don't function like a neurotypical brain, we don't see the problems through the same lens. So we look at solutions differently.
Mm.
Like, one person might say, hey, like, let's go from point A to point B. Whereas a neurodivergent will say, let's go to point X, and then we'll go over to C, and then we'll go to B. And you have a really fun journey, which might end up with like order bumps you never even thought about. Like, you end up with all this extra stuff, which is really cool.
Well, and that's part of one of my curiosities is there's a lot of things in business that are, especially things like you just mentioned, order bumps and funnels, and if you are working especially in the online space, there's very linear processes and linear tools. Like the project management tends to be quite linear. Creating funnels is linear. All of that kind of thing. That's very logical, sequential, which is not mosaic thinking. It's not creative thinking. It is, but in a different way. Is that something that is challenging and that you have to get someone else to help you with, or is that something that some people can do within their version of their neurodiversity?
There are people who do it.
Yeah.
Like, I know one person who's an amazing, that's what she does is project management. Another person who that's what she does is funnels. But they view it, one woman literally closes her eyes, and it's like the Queen's Gambit. She closes her eyes and she sees it.
Okay.
And that's how she comes back with ideas that are not as straightforward as I've always learned funnels. Like, she sees it in a different way, and she adds different, like, she'll add different lookalike audiences to different areas, and all of a sudden her ad spend is cheaper than I've seen it in a standard way. Like, she comes up with new creative ways to do things.
Cool.
It's really cool. Like, working with a neurodivergent person who has it under control is so cool. You get so much more out of it.
There's so many things that I want to ask you, but one minor curiosity they have right now is, why are your books color organized? Because it's very
Mine?
Cool.
Oh,
Because most people, it would be by title or it'd be by type of book, but so to me that's very creative, and I'm just curious what you're thinking.
I'm a very, very visual person, and when you ask for a book title, I will know what color it is and go for it by color. I visualize things.
Okay.
So when someone asks me for something, I will picture it and then go after it. So I can color code to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who is working with a neurodivergent subcontractor, or maybe a partner, or maybe parents with children, etc., where's some really good resources to go to understand how to better engage, how to better manage, how to better get the best work out of them in a way that's positive for them too, for everyone?
The best resource is going to be CHADD, CHADD.org. And that is children and adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Children and adults
with ADHD. That's all it is.
Okay. And so that's a good resource in terms of
that's the number one resource. It is the number one nonprofit for people with ADHD. Okay. So chadd.org.
Okay. And so that would understand if I've got a subcontractor who
if you have anyone, maybe like anyone in the world.
Okay, great.
That's going to be your number one resource. And I suggest reading up on them. Psychology Today will be another good one for you, but Chad will be your number one resource to read up on anything if you want to understand it for another adult, a coworker, a child, anybody.
Okay.
That's all that they do.
Cool. Okay. Interesting. I'm trying to type it in and it won't let me put in neurodivergent because it says it's not a word. But it is the word.
Yeah, it's a word.
It's a word. So tell us a little bit about your gift. You already mentioned it, that it's the
Yes.
healing tool.
So
I'll put the link in
it's
there.
Yep, it is. So you'll find it at maggieIsley.com. So my last name is spelled ISLEY.com/bodacity. And it's going to be a chart for you, like 8.5 by 11 chart. And it's going to be a list of your feelings, your emotions, and then what that is actually telling you, what you need. What need is that resulting from? So that way, like I said, that's good for all humans. Our feelings are a lot stronger when we're neurodivergent, but every single person can benefit from understanding when something pops up, what we actually need from it. So that way we can better manage those feelings.
And so if someone is perhaps feeling like they don't quite fit the mold, they don't quite mesh with the rest of humanity and how we are and how we look at things or whatever, but they haven't been diagnosed. What would you suggest to them? What would you say to them if they feel like they just don't quite, get it the way
they just don't fit in? So if you feel like you would benefit from a formal diagnosis, you absolutely can go get that. I mean, it's up to you. I have a formal diagnosis. My life is not different for it. You do not need a formal diagnosis in order to behave differently, like in order to accommodate your lifestyle. If you're after medication, obviously you need a formal diagnosis, but there's a medication shortage, so you're not going to actually get anything now.
I remember telling you that in our initial interview. There's so many diagnoses right now that
exactly
medication shortage for those diagnoses.
And
I know this is a bigger, longer topic, but do you think people are being overdiagnosed in that realm?
I do not.
Correctly diagnosed, or do you think it is actually just that it's gone undiagnosed for so often, for so long?
That's what I believe. So what I believe is that it's always been a white male disease. And it's not a disease, by the way, but it's always been a white male condition. And little white boys have always been the ones who have it, like, because they can't sit still in school. So they've always had it. And that's fine. I have little white boys who have it in my house. Like, that's fine. But in females, it presents differently. The hyperactivity is stronger in male genes, the genetics. In females, it presents as more of the like, oh, I can't do anything. Oh, I can't. It presents as more of the internal. So it looks like someone who is very finicky, very, very like, oh, the internalizing the RSD feelings, those kind of things.
Very self-critical.
So yes, that's what it looks like in girls. So it's missed when they're young. And it's very people pleasing. So in girls, they're like, oh, I like that in a girl. Like, that's great. No need for a checkup. And then what we see is that when they get to adulthood, it comes to a real problem because they can't handle it anymore. So in adulthood, women are being diagnosed. Whereas in adulthood, men really aren't being diagnosed at the same rate. They still are, but not at the same rate. So yeah, that's what we're seeing now. it's just a shame that that's where we're at. But it's a shock. Like 75% of people with ADHD have interpersonal problems. It's a lot.
Yeah. And somewhat understandably, if you process differently, think differently, see the world differently, then there's going to be miscommunications or not understanding, and we tend not to be accepting of what we don't understand.
Yeah.
We tend to be pretty judgmental about anything that's different than us. So tell people how they can find out more about you and connect with you. And you mentioned community, so tell us about those options.
Oh, absolutely. So if you genuinely want to chat with me, I have a website where you can do that. It's chatwithmaggie.com. And if you're just trying to learn more about me to see if you want to chat with me, go to maggieIsley.com. And on Facebook, I have a free community for ADHD entrepreneurs, and that is called the ADHD Entrepreneur Collective.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
That's a very good thing to name your something that it actually is that people understand.
Right.
Marketing for 40 years, but I named mine the Bodacity's Action Heroes, and no one knew what the hell it was. So ADHD Entrepreneurial Collective? Is that what you said? Okay.
The Entrepreneur Collective.
Entrepreneur Collective. Okay. And what's one last thing you'd like to leave people with in terms of just a thought around this whole conversation?
That less than half of those with ADHD are actually being treated. So if some of this makes sense to you, don't be surprised. And don't feel like you have to rush out and get a diagnosis.
Right.
An actual formal diagnosis does not mean anything. This isn't something that you're no less and no more valid with a doctor sign off.
Right.
Your brain is beautiful as it is.
Yeah, that's a great line. And I do think for some people, the diagnosis is permission or validation or whatever, that they aren't, as you said, Crazy Town USA, that there's actually but in either case, whichever way, floats your boat, community, getting together with people who understand, who've been there, who've done that, who have workarounds, who have learned solutions, who have ways to be, efficient or effective, is a really good thing to do, whatever kind of entrepreneur you are. Trying to do it alone doesn't make sense. Trying to do it alone when you have an added layer of not being understood, not really knowing how to deal with things in certain ways, the standard ways, even harder. So do reach out, check out the Facebook. I put Facebook community, ADHD Collective. Reach out to Maggie, talk to her, connect with her if that feels like something would be supportive to you. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're in corporate or you're dealing with things, community support helps. Having people who get you help, having a coach in your corner who can cheer you on, hold you accountable, and help you be more on than you normally are, whatever the challenge may be, makes life so much easier. So
yeah.
And thank you. We didn't actually get to talk about people on the spectrum, but I know that you also deal with that as well. So
I do.
Whatever your variety or variation may be, it's probably a good community to check out, even if it's not ADHD, because you get some compassion, some understanding, and some practical workarounds and ways to get through the day. So thank you for the work you do, Maggie. Thank you for being here and shedding a little light. Like I said, I really could talk to you for hours, but we got to go already over time. But I really appreciate you here. Thank you so much. And everybody, do reach out. Whatever your brain is, it's a beautiful brain. Thanks.
Yes.
Talk to you soon, everybody. Bye for now.